Okay, so think about this for a second. How do you usually find information online? You type in some keywords, right? Scroll through like a bunch of blue links, maybe click a few, try to piece it all together. Well, what if I told you that whole process, it's basically about to change, like fundamentally? Today, we are diving deep into Google's new AI mode. And this isn't just, it's a small tweak. It feels more like a real paradigm shift in how we get information. It was just unveiled at Google I/O 2025, and it's actually rolling out now across the U.S. for anyone over 13,
Yeah.
powered by their Gemini AI model.
Exactly. And our mission today really is to unpack how this AI mode is, well, reimagining what search even is. We want to look at what makes it so different from, the Google we're used to. What can it actually do? And maybe more importantly, what's it going to mean for how you find answers, get stuff done in the future?
Okay, so let's jump right into that first big shift you mentioned, this conversational contextual search. You're saying it moves beyond just that static list of links we all know.
Mm.
What does that actually look like? I mean, how does it handle something really complex, like a question with multiple parts?
Well, what's really fascinating here is how it's designed to give you these rich, sort of multi-step answers, almost like talking to an assistant, right? So instead of just pointing you to websites, it synthesizes information. Imagine you're planning, say, a family trip. You've got specific dates, different interests for everyone, maybe a tight budget. You can just describe all that naturally to AI mode, and it won't just spit out a list of hotels. It aims to give you like a whole itinerary suggestion, weaving all those bits together. Or maybe you're comparing different financial products. It can break down the pros and cons for you, make it easier to digest.
Wow, okay, that's pretty different. So it's not just finding stuff, it's actively processing it and structuring it for you. How does it actually manage that kind of synthesis?
Yeah, exactly. It's powered by something Google calls query fan-out technology. It sounds technical, but the idea is pretty intuitive. When you ask a complex question, the AI doesn't just treat it as one big search term. It intelligently breaks it down into smaller sort of sub-questions. Then, and this is the clever part, it searches for answers to each of those smaller questions in parallel at the same time across the web. And then it compiles all those findings into one detailed kind of multi-perspective answer. This whole technique lets it give you these really nuanced, almost expert-level responses, stuff that honestly might take you hours of digging through different sites to figure out on your own. It really shifts the workload, Instead of you doing all the synthesizing, the AI does it, frees you up to think about the actual decision.
And it doesn't just stop at the first answer, right? There's this interactive bit, follow-up questions.
Right, that's key. You get that initial synthesized answer, but then you can just keep the conversation going. Ask for more detail, maybe tell it to narrow things down, focus on a specific aspect. It really becomes more like a dialogue.
Making the whole thing much more interactive. Yeah, and tailored specifically to what you need in that moment. Okay, now this is where I think it gets really interesting, the multimodal stuff. You're saying AI mode can handle queries not just from typing, but also like speaking to it, or even showing it pictures through Google Lens. Give us an example. How would that work day to day?
Oh, absolutely. Imagine you've got a plant at home and it's, looking a bit sad, wilting maybe. Instead of trying to type out a description like plant with droopy leaves and brown spots, you could just snap a picture with your phone, upload it through Lens, and boom, AI mode could potentially give you care instructions right there.
All right.
Or think about cooking. Your hands are messy, covered in flour or something. You can just ask your phone out loud, what's the next step in this recipe? No touching needed. It's about making search fit how we actually operate, not forcing us into just typing keywords.
Wow, okay. So pictures are one thing, but you mentioned it's not just static images. It can handle live interaction too.
Exactly. And that leads into Project Astra integration. This is pretty cutting edge. Google's AI is getting the ability to understand live video feeds and even screen sharing. So picture this. You're stuck on some tech problem, right? With your computer or phone. Instead of trying to describe it, you could literally point your phone's camera at the screen or share your screen directly. And Astra could potentially offer real-time guidance, like, okay, click that button there, or try adjusting this setting as you're doing it.
Whoa.
Yeah, it's a real step towards interactive assistance. Now, this specific feature, they mentioned it's rolling out first to the Gemini Advanced subscribers, so the paid tier.
That is seriously impressive. And for those of us dealing with lots of data, numbers, that kind of thing, there's also something called custom visualizations.
Right, so for those data-heavy queries, think comparing sports stats, maybe visualizing financial trends over time, things that can be hard to grasp just from text. AI mode can actually generate interactive charts and graphs for you right there in the results, on the fly.
making complex information way more accessible and
Yeah.
much easier to understand at a glance.
Okay, let's shift gears a bit and talk about personal context and, really importantly, privacy. Oh, AI mode can, if you let it, connect with your other Google stuff, like your Gmail, your calendar, and use that info to personalize your search results. So, for example, if you search for restaurants nearby, it might take into account places you've booked before through Gmail or suggest activities near your hotel based on your travel plans from calendar.
Okay, that level of personalization definitely sounds powerful, super useful, potentially. But it immediately makes me think, how much control do I actually have over that? Is it tracking everything?
That's the crucial question, isn't it? And Google seems very aware of that concern. They emphasize user control.
Hmm.
You explicitly have to choose to enable or disable this personal context feature. It's not on by default, or at least you have clear control over it. And the system is designed to clearly indicate when it is using your personal info to tailor results. So there should be transparency there. You're meant to be in the driver's seat.
That's definitely good to hear.
Yeah.
Okay, let's talk shopping.
Yeah.
Because this sounds like it could really change how we buy things online, too. There's a new conversational shopping assistant
Yeah.
that understands, like, normal sentences.
Yeah, exactly. You could say something like, I need trail running shoes under $150, and they need to be good for wide feet. Much more natural than just keywords.
Right.
And it's designed to then offer smart filtering options based on that, personalized suggestions maybe, and they even mention virtual try-ons using AR for some products.
Virtual try-ons. Okay.
Yeah.
That's interesting. And looking even further ahead, you mentioned agentic actions. What's that about?
Right, this is the near future stuff. The idea is that AI mode won't just find information for you, it will eventually be able to perform tasks on your behalf. Think about maybe telling it to track the price of a specific flight or product you want to buy, or even down the line, making the actual purchase or booking a restaurant reservation. Now, crucially, they stress this would always be with your explicit approval. You'd have to confirm before it actually does anything. But it represents a pretty profound shift, doesn't it? Moving search from just finding information to potentially acting on it directly.
Absolutely. So when you pull all this together, what does it mean for just, everyday life?
Hmm.
For productivity, I guess it adds up to a pretty significant productivity boost, potentially. Features like deep search.
Yeah, deep search sounds like it could be really powerful for more complex tasks, where AI mode could conduct really in-depth research for you, synthesizing information from many sources, summarizing the key findings,
Right.
and maybe even helping out with things like drafting content, writing code snippets, analyzing data, all kind of integrated into that one search experience. It really could shift the burden, couldn't it? Taking a lot of that initial information gathering and processing off your plate.
So let's peek under the hood for a moment. What's actually driving all this? You mentioned Gemini.
That's right. At the core of AI mode is Gemini, which Google says is their most advanced AI model so far. It excels in a few key areas. First, obviously, natural language processing, understanding and generating text that feels human, summarizing, translating, all that good stuff. Then there's visual understanding. That's how I can interpret images and videos, answer questions about what's in a picture, or even generate visuals itself.
Mm-hmm.
And finally, code generation, which is pretty interesting. It can translate natural language requests like write a Python script to do X directly into code for developers or even just for automating tasks. Google trains these models on their specialized hardware, their AI hypercomputer, for speed and efficiency. And they make a point of mentioning rigorous safety testing, looking for bias, toxicity, trying to anticipate how people might misuse it. Responsible deployment is the goal, they say.
Okay, but this raises a huge question, doesn't it? What does all this mean for the rest of the web? For SEO, for websites that rely on people clicking links? If AI mode is just giving people the answer directly, synthesized, where does that leave the original creators? How do websites get discovered now?
That's the million-dollar question, maybe the billion-dollar question for a lot of people. It's definitely transforming SEO and how content creators, marketers, everyone needs to think. The shift towards conversational and intent-driven search means simply having keywords isn't enough. If your information isn't seen as authoritative, if it's not easily verifiable, if it's not structured in a way that an AI can easily digest and use in its synthesis, you could become less visible. The focus really shifts to, genuine, high-quality, user-centric content. And things like structured data become even more important, marking up your content so the AI knows what's what. It's less about just getting crawled and indexed, and maybe more about being understood by this intelligence so it can surface your insights as part of its comprehensive answer. It's definitely a pivot away from maybe gaming the system with keywords towards actually structuring knowledge effectively.
Okay, so for our listeners who are hearing this and thinking, right, I want to try this out, how do they actually get started with AI mode?
Well, the good news is it's rolling out pretty broadly now, at least in the US, to anyone over 13. Global rollout is planned, but US first. You might see an option to enable it through Search Labs, which is kind of Google's experimental area, or you might just see it appearing directly in the main Google search interface. Using it is pretty straightforward. Just ask your question like you're having a conversation. You can type it, you can speak it using the microphone icon, or you can use Google Lens to upload an image. For those really advanced features like the live video help with Project Astra or screen sharing, you'll need to look out for specific prompts, maybe a live icon, or use the Gemini Live feature on Android if you have Gemini Advanced.
Okay, so just to kind of wrap things up here, the impact seems, well, profound. Google AI mode feels like it's genuinely redefining what search even means. It's blending some really advanced AI reasoning, this multimodal input talking, showing pictures and deep personalization. It adds up to an experience that feels, I guess, more intelligent, much more interactive, and hopefully more helpful than what we've had before. It definitely points towards a future where, our daily chats with Google become even more seamless, more insightful, maybe even more action-oriented.
Absolutely. And maybe here's a final thought for you, the listener, to chew on as we finish up. As this AI mode gets better and better at handling complex research, maybe even taking on some of those agentic actions like booking things for us, what does that mean for us? What new skills or maybe different critical thinking approaches become really valuable for you? How do we best navigate, verify, and truly understand the information when it's being synthesized and presented in this new way? Something to think about in this evolving digital world.